Podcast title, 2024 Presidential Debate Breakdown. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Good Advice Givers podcast, powered by Buzzsprout. I'm your host, Terrence. And today we've got a lot to cover. We're diving into one of the most important topics of the year, the 2024 presidential debate. With the election just around the corner, the debates are heating up, the polls are shifting, and the candidates are making their final pitches to the American people. So, who's leading the race? What policies are the candidates pushing for? And how will all of this shape the future of our country? Let's break it all down. Whether you're locked into your choice or still undecided, this conversation will give you an overview of where the candidates stand and how the race is shaping up. Let's dive into the 2024 presidential landscape. Current poll standings. First, let's start with the polls. As of now, the top candidates in the race are President Joe Biden, representing the Democrats, and Donald Trump, representing the Republicans. Both candidates are familiar faces, as Trump seeks a return to office and Biden seeks a second term. Currently, Biden and Trump are neck and neck in most national polls, with slight variations depending on the state. Biden is leading in some swing states, while Trump holds a strong base in many traditionally conservative areas. But they're not the only ones on the ballot. The Republican primary has seen a field of candidates vying for attention. Rising stars like Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida, and Nikki Haley, former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, have made headlines, but they're still trailing Trump by significant margins. Trump's base remains loyal, and despite various legal challenges and controversies, he holds a solid lead in the Republican primary polls. On the Democratic side, Biden's main challenge has been maintaining enthusiasm within his base. While there hasn't been a strong Democratic primary challenger, some progressive voices have expressed concerns over Biden's age and ability to lead for another term. But so far, Biden remains the presumptive Democratic nominee with little internal competition. Policy overview: Joe Biden. Now, let's talk about where these candidates stand on key issues, starting with Joe Biden. As the incumbent president, Biden's campaign is largely focused on his record over the past 4 years. One of the central themes of Biden's platform is economic recovery. He's highlighted his administration's response to the COVID-19 pandemic, focusing on job creation, infrastructure improvements, and efforts to reduce unemployment. The Inflation Reduction Act and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill are two signature pieces of legislation that Biden points to as major accomplishments. In terms of health care, Biden continues to advocate for expanding the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, aiming to lower healthcare costs and increase coverage, particularly for low-income families. He's also pushing for Medicare negotiations to lower prescription drug prices. On the environmental front, Biden's policies are aligned with addressing climate change. He's committed to rejoining the Paris Climate Agreement, and his administration has set ambitious goals for reducing carbon emissions and investing in clean energy technologies. Biden's vision is to transition the U.S. toward a greener economy with sustainable jobs in renewable energy sectors. When it comes to foreign policy, Biden emphasizes restoring America's global standing and strengthening alliances. His administration has focused on rebuilding relationships with NATO allies, addressing the war in Ukraine, and taking a more measured approach to handling tensions with countries like China and Russia. However, Biden's presidency hasn't been without challenges. Inflation and the rising cost of living have been major pain points, and while unemployment is down, many Americans feel the economic recovery hasn't fully reached their pockets. Biden's handling of immigration has also been a divisive issue, with both progressive and conservative critics voicing concerns over the U.S.-Mexico border situation. Policy overview: Donald Trump. Let's move on to Donald Trump, who is seeking a return to the White House. Trump's platform is built around the idea of America First, a slogan that drove much of his 2016 campaign and presidency. On the economy, Trump is focusing heavily on lowering taxes and reducing government regulations. His vision is to stimulate economic growth by empowering businesses and cutting what he views as excessive red tape. He's promising a return to the tax cuts passed during his first term, which he claims helped create a booming economy before the pandemic hit. One of Trump's most vocal campaign points is the need to secure the southern border. He remains committed to building a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border, and his immigration policy is aimed at cracking down on illegal immigration while prioritizing American workers. Trump has promised to finish what he started in terms of border security, claiming that a secure border is crucial for national safety and economic stability. In terms of health care, Trump has criticized Biden's efforts to expand the Affordable Care Act. Instead, Trump has proposed a new approach to health care reform that focuses on reducing government involvement and encouraging competition among private insurers to lower costs. On the international front, Trump has pushed for a more isolationist foreign policy. He's repeatedly criticized U.S. involvement in foreign wars and advocated for reducing America's role as a global police force. His trade policies, particularly with China, have been a key part of his platform. Trump argues that tough trade deals and tariffs on China are necessary to protect American manufacturing jobs and reduce the trade deficit. One of the biggest challenges Trump faces, though, is his handling of the January 6th Capitol insurrection. This remains a significant issue for many voters, and while Trump's base remains loyal, it's unclear how this will impact his chances with swing voters or moderate Republicans who are on the fence. Other candidates and their policies. It's not just Biden and Trump in the race, though. While they dominate the headlines, there are other candidates making their pitches to voters. Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida, has built his platform around culture wars and state autonomy. DeSantis is well known for his opposition to federal mandates on COVID-19 restrictions, and he's positioned himself as a champion of individual freedoms. He's also focused heavily on education reform, particularly in pushing back against what he calls woke ideologies in public schools. DeSantis has vowed to protect parental rights in education and has taken a firm stance on banning certain discussions of race and gender in the classroom. Meanwhile, Nikki Haley, the former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, has presented herself as a foreign policy expert. She's focused on the need for strong U.S. leadership abroad, particularly in the face of rising threats from China and Russia. Haley's campaign also highlights the need for fiscal responsibility, emphasizing the need to reduce the national debt and control government spending.